Welcome everybody, I am back with another coloring tutorial. This is issue 3 of Annabelle. This is my cover that I did the art for it. Right here you see me doing the coloring on it. Issue 3 just finished up on Kickstarter a few weeks ago. The books are actually at the printer right now getting printed, and I want to thank everybody who backed issue 3, and for those that haven't, this will be available on my website. I will have very limited run of the variant covers for issue 3. I'll put a link to my website in the description. That is darkspacestudio.com. And here we are just showing me rendering out a lot of the colors for this cover. I have the flats already to go. Flats are something, you know, a quick little understanding of that is it's just a way to separate all the elements in artwork. I do my own flats mostly for my covers. For interior art, I will typically send that out to some flatters that I work with, just because they can do it a little bit quicker than I. But for covers, you know, I definitely try to do it myself. You know, and as you see here, I have my same brush that I typically use for a lot of stuff. I like the way the brush kind of works with colors, the cut edges that it adds, and some of the softness that it adds as well. But typically I will render, you know, light to dark, depending on what the colors are and you know what the base color, what I set the base color up as. You know, a lot of this here you're seeing me go with the highlights first, and then kind of like adding in some of the shadows and the darker areas in that specific section of coloring. I know coming up here on her shirt, I actually go dark to light. And, you know, honestly, I don't have a rhyme or reason. It's just kind of like whatever works for me at that time. You know, I really go with the flow. Like here, did a little bit of lights, and then on his pants, I just went in with some base shadows. This is, at this stage here, this is a sped up video pretty fast. I typically will come in with one pass of just base highlights, base shadows, and then I will go in there and start adding in all of this detail, start adding in any bounce lights or highlights, thinking about where these highlights and shadows are coming from, and then where's the shadows on the opposite side of the highlights. You know, it's not perfect by any means, but you know, I like to do things that kind of look cool when I color, so I have to say that it's probably not all perfectly lit and exactly how all the lights and shadows fall, but you know, generally speaking, I like to do like cool looking stuff. Sometimes you got to bend the rules to get it to that point. And like I said, here on her shirt, I started with the shadows, and then I go in with the highlights. And this is really just the first pass. I will do some cut and gradient type of highlights as well. And I think that's just, it's artwork dependent, and it really just depends on the material also within that specific piece. Where clothing, I mean, you can get away with doing some of it. Some people use that style, the cut and gradient style, for everything. I'm a little bit more selective with it, and I'm also, depending on the art style, where I've done some indie comic work before, like depending on the art style, I may do that cut and gradient style for the whole piece, and not really do any type of brush rendering like I'm doing here on her legs. Like I'm actually using an airbrush and going in there and adding things, and that brings me to another point. Like I use different brushes. Typically I have like 2 or 3 that I use for most things. Airbrush I typically will use for female skin. I think that gives it a nice soft look to it. For men, sometimes I'll use the airbrush depending on, you know, what I'm doing with the character, but typically I'll use the other main brush I have, which has like a kind of a painterly cut edge on one side, softer edge on the other. And then for most materials, I'll end up using that painterly brush that I have. I did that with the cur in the background, the dragon, and I do that with almost all the elements here, even in this magic area. You know, it's kind of like, I really, that's my go-to brush. Here doing some minor adjustments, and then here you can see I'm going in and doing that cut and gradient style a little bit on her shirt and clothes, just to kind of pop these highlights a little bit. These are going to be, I start with natural highlights as far as like to give the different shapes, whether they're round or square, you know, try to give them edge so that that way they look like it's actual circle or square, rectangle, whatever that is. And then I'll go in with some different highlights, environmental highlights. So, you know, you'll see coming up here that I'm going to be working on her magic highlight, the highlight from her magic, I should say. And, you know, greens and purples I found that are really tough to work with. You got to be careful with the saturation and just the overall intensity of the color, because they can have a huge color shift when you go to print them. So that's just something I've learned over the years. You know, purple and greens, they can be some tough colors to work with. Just doing some minor color adjustments here, working on some of the highlights from the flames. And as you see, like her hair, the highlight on the top is coming from the flame, the bottom is coming from the magic. So, you know, you can mix and match. You can have different highlights from different places, and it really can all work out at the end. But we're going to wrap this up here in a couple seconds here, and I will end up showcasing the final one with all the elements and fire and magic, you know, and that's this piece here. And then, you know, here's what the cover actually, the finished cover looked like. I would say if you haven't, click the like and subscribe button. That really does help out the channel, and I will see you on the next video.